What is up, guys? Pie Muffin here, and we are back with some more Trails into Reverie. Last time, well, we can return to the garden now. Last time, we officially finished Trails into Reverie completely. We cleared the 0th stratum. We were able to defeat, I don't even remember what the creatures, Demiurgeros, a copy of the thing that we fought back in Trails to Azure. And we were able to set the original OZ unit free. And with that, our adventure in Erebonia / Crossbell has come to a close. However, we have one more thing to do. Well, I mean, it's going to be a couple videos probably. But we essentially have one more thing to do before we can really close out this playthrough. We obtained a white sealing stone from the final battle, and we are going to open it to get our final daydreams that we're going to be doing here. So let's go ahead and unlock it. Beyond the Reverie is now available. So let's go ahead and get started on it. I'm just gonna do them in order, however they appear. Did some of the characters move around? I don't remember Elliot playing music here last time. I remember him just kind of sitting. I mean, not like it really matters one way or another. Alright. Beyond the Reverie. Alright. Let's look forward to it. Or look into it, I guess. Our final adventure. Well, not really an adventure. It's all just gonna be little story scenes. Not even scenes. It's going to be more in like the visual novel style that some of the Sky Third doors were. We're just going to have 3 stories that essentially set us up with some knowledge before we move over to the Calvard Republic in the next game. So let's hop into it. I forget how it works in here, if we just like select them or okay. These are but minute fragments of memories drifting in an endless ocean memories of what will be in the near future. Could they be shadows of tangled threads woven by Elysium, or perhaps faded illusions that slip through the cracks of time and space? There are none who know the answer. Alright, so we got 3 stories. We have another Hot Springs Paradise and an unconventional student. There is a third one, but it doesn't appear until you've seen these first 2. So let's get started with another Hot Springs Paradise. January year 1208 of the Septian calendar. Okay, so this is like what were we at the end of March when Reverie ends? So this is like 9-10 months later. Okay. Between 2 great mountains at the tip of a Calvardian basin sits Longlie. We obviously know about Longlie. The town is known for 2 things, being the eastern entrance to the Republic and its exceptional hot springs. Though these enticing factors does it continue to welcome tourists hailing from both home and abroad. It's like a vacation place, like some of the, I guess similar to Ymir. Yet, today, it served guests quite unlike its many unseasoned visitors. These had come from another renowned hot springs paradise situated in the northern reaches of Erebonia. Gee, I wonder who that's gonna be. Look at our little Schwarzer family here. Look at them. So we got Rean, Tio. Was it Lucia? Lucia Schwarzer? Was that her name? And of course, Elise right there. All looking like they're enjoying a nice little vacation. So I guess this would be during, because obviously this is going to be a few months before new Class 7 would graduate. Because at the end of March, they still had 1 more year to go through. So this is probably like 2 months before they graduate. So I'm imagining this is kind of during like Either Rean took some time off or it's during some kind of vacation before graduation. The depth of flavor in the food here is just exquisite. Agreed, the Phoenix Wings food certainly is nothing to sneeze at, but I have my doubts the chef could replicate dishes this unique in taste. The Bishan Inn's reputation continues to precede itself. Baron Tio and Lady Lucia Schwarzer were sampling the inn's culinary delights, spirits high and stomachs filling fast. Their daughter, Elise, that night, see, it's like in a light novel. It's not like how a lot of these stories kind of are written. Elise sat next to them, her spirit a bit lower by comparison as her brows furrowed with concern. I'm sure its luxuries come with an equally luxurious price tag, and there's 4 of us, so even 2 nights must have cost a small fortune. Oh, so she's worried about the cost. Upon realizing what she said, she shook her head. I didn't mean to dampen the mood. I know we have the money, but all my budgeting as student council president has made a terrible habit of me seeing the numbers and everything. Her older brother Rean couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Then the budget buster in you will like how much we save because we're not here as paying customers. We were invited by the owners personally. They said they wanted to get to know us since we run similar establishments, so here we are, and we'll be inviting them to Ymir sooner than later, of course. Right, Dad? Oh, absolutely. Add this to the list of boons coming from our countries finally coming to terms with one another. The Republic is reveling in unheard of levels of prosperity, and relations between our people are more active and festive than ever. I, for one, welcome any opportunity to further foster friendship. The Baron took another healthy sip of his baijiu before continuing. Friendship over fighting, I say. Such a shame that the world tends to overcomplicate that simple concept. Seeing her husband's glass was almost empty, Lucia... Oh, yeah, it is Lucia. I don't want to get, like, his mom's mixed up name-wise. Filled it to the brim and adding her own thoughts. That's all the more reason we need to make the most of this invitation and enjoy ourselves to the fullest. Their children nodded in agreement. And even that aside, there's no reason to spoil a family vacation when we so rarely have time to take them. Oh, I read about some unusual sweet dishes worth trying here. Would you like to share some with me, Rean? In a bit. I'm thinking of taking another soak in the hot springs, so I might be in the mood for something sweet after. The food here is delicious as far as I'm concerned. The hot springs are the real star of the show. That's my boy right there. The ruling lord of the hot springs paradise would never let a good discussion about them passing by. He was as fond of their quality and soothing effects as Rean, enthusiasm undeniably apparent from the warmth of his tone and the width of his smile. Their medicinal springs happen to be a favorite of mine. I can't help but be fascinated by them time and time again. I can't believe it. I've always known about them, but this is the first place I've been able to feel the way they warm you right to your core. Think we can make one available at the Phoenix Wings? It'd be worth a try, but that comes with its own obstacles. For as many problems as Tio expressed in practical terms, Rean held just as many proposed solutions. The conversation grew more involved by the minute, leaving the ladies of the house to pleasantly bask in their glow and continue enjoying the meal before them. All four felt the same, that it had been too long since they could enjoy each other's company, but the wait had been well worth it. That night, after indulging in his post-dinner soak in the springs and telling his family he was going for a walk, Rean departed the inn. All right, let's do this. He took in a deep breath. The crisp night air of Longlai filled his lungs. The hot springs were an excellent bonus to his trip, to be sure, but it was not the real reason he agreed to visit. Oh, Master Yun Kafai, is this one of the last places he was seen? He had come in search of Yun Kafai, the famed sword hermit. Master Kafai was the founder of the 8 Leaves One Blade School, of which Rean was a practitioner, and though now over 70 years old, he was still regarded as one of the strongest combatants in the continent. They had not met since before Rean's enrollment at Thor's, forever ago. Many a letter was, so what, Rean enrolled in like 1204 and it's 1208 now? Many a letter was exchanged during the the 4 years that followed, but even they had stopped after Rean had earned the right to call himself a Divine Blade over a year ago. So whenever Cassius came with that letter, that was the last one. There was so very much he wished to discuss with his master. What he had learned in his 4 years of training, what had transpired since becoming a Divine Blade, the true meaning behind being the final blade to master the 8 leaves. There's plenty I'd like to ask that have nothing to do with swordsmanship, too. All these questions, all impossible to answer without first knowing the whereabouts of a single individual. Even a senior practitioner like Cassius Bright claimed ignorance, having received not a single update from their old master. He had always been an elusive but traceable sort, but wherever he was now was impossible to track. That was until word of a blade master being sighted in Long Lai reached Rean's ears. The man held a fondness for the town's specialties, those being the hot springs and its fragrant tea leaves, making the sighting worthy of particular note. He also knew from the letters before they stopped that he intended to journey eastward, making Long Lai one of the more plausible stopping points. The word came to him just as the Schwarzers were invited to stay at the inn during their New Year vacation. Rean's instincts told him the timing was a little too fortunate, but with how vague the lead was, even if it was most likely to result in him leaving the same as he arrived. While he had not discussed the rumor being key to his traveling here, his family seemed to sense it was more than a simple pleasure trip for him. I know Dad would have a great time catching up with him, but I don't want to get his hopes up for nothing. These thoughts in mind, Rean made his way through the night streets. Long Lai's architecture was distinctly Eastern, making it uniquely intriguing sight among most of Calvard's town and cities. This was not to say it was similar to Crossbell's East Street. Yeah, you can tell it's very different. I mean, you got the water underneath and everything. And it's definitely much bigger, but it does look beautiful at night. At least from this picture. With subtle colors paired with dignified beauty, every wall and stone exuded the traditional concepts of wabi-sabi. One look was enough to understand the region was rich with history. This quiet charm would give way to contrastly lively evenings, where tourists both westward and farther eastward were greeted to stalls dedicated to the hot springs and more. This too held a traditional sort of charm. Rean asked several merchants if they had any information pertaining to the whereabouts of his master, somewhat sheepishly purchasing a number of souvenirs from their stalls to keep himself from being a nuisance. They, he justified, would make an excellent gift for his friends, his co-workers, and his students. Aw, look at them. He's thinking about his students who are about to graduate, seemingly. Oh, look at Rean with his nice little coat, too. I can't believe it's almost time for them to graduate. Yeah, like you think about that. They're almost ready to go out and like we talked about before, Yuna's most likely going to go back to Crossbell and work with the SSS. Altina's probably going to go back to the intelligence division. Kurt is going to do stuff with the Vander School. Muse, obviously, she has her Duchess stuff to do. And Ash, as we most recently found out, is probably going to become a bracer. I may be more emotional about theirs than I was for mine. For the first time, Rean would get to experience what it was like for the young birds he had taken under his wing for 2 years to finally leave the nest. Their first year had been eventful, to say the least, yeah, but it sounds like the second year was a more normal school year for them all. What had started as a problem class full of disagreements and mounting tension had slowly grown into one of compassion and understanding for one another. It was with each new discovery about themselves and every new ordeal the world sought to impose upon them that they grew not only as individuals but as a team. He hoped this period would remain as much of a meaningful part of their lives as it would always be for him. The months before the Retributive Tower's appearance held many a trial, making the 10 months that followed in its shadow pass all too quickly. Yeah, no more threats, no more nonsense. In that time, Rean students continue to mature, building on everything they accomplished in their first year to prepare for and settle into their desired future. Indeed, whether it was by overcoming their demons or by learning to work with them in a healthier fashion, their paths up till now had been well worn. And, while they may have had to rest from time to time, he was proud to be part of why their steps continued to face forward. Proud, but also lonely at the thought of saying goodbye. Yeah, it's like, in a way, it's like that they're like his kids. He's looked over them for the better part of the last 2 years, and now he's gonna have to say goodbye. Obviously, just like with the old Class 7, you know, it's not going to be a forever thing. You know, there'll be a time where they all have to come together for the sake of the world again, but they're not going to see each other every day like they have been. As their second year drew to a close, lacking in grandiose events but still rewarding in its own right, it was this mixture of emotions that bore conflict within him most. Can't believe I'll be going through it all over again. Next year, and even the year after that. Hell of a career I chose to pursue, huh? He didn't know when he stopped walking. Realizing this, he resumed his search, paying respect in mind to the many generations of educators who came before him. No matter where he looked, he could not find Master Kafai in Longlai. It was, however, too early to say whether the trip had been in vain, as he had at least caught an unverified report of the Blade Master being seen in the mountains to the south. Wandering such terrain at night wasn't going to be ideal, but Rean was already firm on spending the next day with his family. Tonight, it would have to be. Making a brief stop to the inn to tuck his souvenirs somewhere secure, he then departed for his new destination. I mean, he's a divine blade. I mean, if he gets ambushed by any monsters or anything, I'm sure he can handle it. The mountains winding, half-beaten trails would be more treacherous at night, but they were not off-limits as such. The key, Rean knew, would be not to rely on sight alone. His senses of hearing and smell, perhaps even touch, were going to be equally vital in the hours ahead. Calling upon his experience and intellect to heighten all 5 senses, he took in his surroundings in full. This really takes me back to training in the mountains. To call the experience training would imply his time being one of simple tutelage between student and master, but it equated to so much more. The danger then was far worse than it is now, with some days requiring to set foot in highly dangerous territories just to find the day's food to survive. It sounds like the Kunlun Mountains may have been used for a similar exercise long ago. Rean was certain to think on the information gained during his search as he continued along the trail. Searching for evidence of human activity in an environment like this was not a difficult task. Humans always leave something indicative of presence behind that no wild creature could. Be it long-dead fire, footprints, traces of going on a hunt. One need only follow the light to lead to their source. Rean did so, advancing with caution instilled in him by both his old master and hunting enthusiast of a father. They soon led him precisely to clear evidence that a human had been in the area, though the evidence itself was far from what he expected. Remains of a camp? No, it didn't look like it had been left by a martial arts in training, or roaming hunters. But the most peculiar thing was that there were multiple sites like the first, all evenly spaced from one to the next. It was as though something was being measured. Maybe this is from a group of scholars doing field research, but it seems too large scale for that. There was nothing more to be found here. Rean advanced. Soon after, he found another unusual amount of evidence. It's like someone forced their way through here in a car, or more like hacked open a path wide enough for a car to pass through. All further inspection here suggested that whoever was responsible had given up on this endeavor, leading him to wonder if they somehow found success elsewhere. And if they did, why had they done this at all? The question pestered him. If there was anywhere to clear wide paths, the remote depths of the mountains certainly were not it. But instinct told him he was only a step away from discovering the answer. If I just keep following this trail a little farther. At this thought, Rean sensed someone approaching. One person, two people. Yes, there were two, and it was clear they were aware of his presence as well. Only for a fleeting second did he think they might be the ones responsible for the strange trails, but a deadly tension that now thickened the air told him these were no simple scholars. He felt them draw near, the night veiling themselves well, and then he felt them stop. How about you show yourselves? He spoke without placing his hand on his tachi, signifying to those watching he had no desire to fight. Their silhouettes then silently emerged from the darkest shadows of the mountains. They looked very much like the shinobi of the east he had heard about, their forms clad from top to bottom in black garments and their faces fully obscured. Okay, there's two of them. The person behind Rean has two swords, but yeah, they have him surrounded. Well, now he's got his, he's holding his tachi, but he doesn't have his hand on it per se. I see your insight poses a threat after all, Divine Blade of the Empire. The contract with our client is yet to begin, but we'll make an exception for one among their list of dangerous persons. Wait, what? The contract with our client has yet to begin. So the person they're working for has a list of people they think might interfere? The silhouettes then charged. They caught him completely off guard, drawing short, straight blades to attack him as they narrowed in. Rean's eyes widened in surprise, but nearly in the same moment, he was in fighting stance, hand over his still-sheathed tachi. Fifth form, Morning Moon. He perceived the direction of his foes' attacks to evade them, then mounted a counterattack of his own. All it took was that instant to repel their assault and leave them vulnerable. Ordinarily, this would be the time to take the offensive, but all Rean could do was stare at the two with disbelief. The thought entered my mind as I saw you move, but now that we've crossed blades... He paused, the disbelief in his eyes giving way to a more intent gaze. Are you... practitioners of the Eight-Leaf School? Another pause, this time from the silhouettes before answering as though they were well aware the question was coming. No, though we do possess ties to the school. We are of the Ikaruga, practitioners of the Black God One Blade School. Okay, so a different school derived from the original. The what? Rean was left stunned. The two Ikaruga had held their blades horizontally, ready to thrust them forward at any moment. It was as though they wanted to make clear that they had been caught off guard once. It was as though they wanted to make clear that while they had been caught off guard once, he would not be so fortunate twice. Rean responded by assuming the middle stance with his tachi. But just as the sides were only a beat away from engaging in battle, what could only be described as a black cyclone roared from the distance, from the darkness, at such speed that it seemed certain to slice anything it touched. Its appearance caught Rean by surprise more than the initial attacks by the silhouettes. He had not suspected an attack from that angle, that distance, or even that moment. His enemies, on the other hand, did not so much as flinch at the sight. The approaching blade, over an arch and a half in length, was heading directly for Rean's back. He couldn't possibly dodge it now. Perhaps he should have noticed. Perhaps it was impossible to notice. Whatever the answer, the divine blade of the Empire would soon fall. The silhouettes waited for his final moments to be convinced there was no other fate in his future. When Rean spun his body in a full circle, applying the intensity built into his tachi from the motion to swing. The blow made was weighted yet precise, shifting the incoming blade to a new direction, without mitigating its near overpowering force. The technique was an application of the first form helix, There was no greater course in the moment to use it to redirect the attack without it ever making contact. So it's like when he was trying to do, when he was trying to use a normal Soldat and he broke it by turning that fast. So it's like, that's what he was essentially doing. The spinning blade was now significantly off its intended course, but Rean slashed at it again, birthing a shockwave that further shifted its path. The blade went flying hairs to the right of the direction it had come from. A hand was there to deftly catch it midair. Hello. You may have only received the title, but you are worthy of being called a divine blade all the same. You used the unclouded eye well. From this hand emerged a new figure from the darkness. While he was clad in similar garments and silhouettes, something about his presence was more inspired by comparison. I'm curious about something. Can you, oh, okay, you can look it from here, in case you missed something. His musculature was thoroughly discernible beneath his body-covered, fortified suit. His every movement, however slight, reflected a complete lack of hesitation. The faint light in his eyes, visible through his mask, projected no emotion whatsoever. The man possessed the aura of a true warrior, one projected only by those who have fought more battles than were possible to count. Terrifying. Fall back. He is too formidable a foe for you to handle. The silhouette slid into the darkness in an instant. Only the new arrival was left to face Rean. I need to know, who are you and why did you attack me? Our contract forbids the disclosure of such information. You will leave this place now, fledgling Divine Blade. Wow. The tone was not one of advice nor of an order. It was as if the man were stating a fact, his calmness unveiling an undertone of malice that told Rean what would happen if he did not do as he was told. See, this is the rough part. Rean's in another country, like, this isn't his responsibility, but it's just, he sticks his nose where it doesn't belong. That's just part of who he is. I'm afraid I can't do that without an explanation. Not when I haven't found what I'm looking for yet. I understand, then. There was no longer anything to discuss. All they could do was battle. I, Kurogane of the Rogetsu School, shall be your opponent. Kurogane stood at attention, the large blade he had thrown before now pointed. I'd have rather settled this with words, but I can see that's not an option. Rean sighed, taking his own stance in turn. Then Rean Schwarzer, master of the 8 Leaves, 1 Blade School, 7th form, shall be yours. Wait, what? I didn't understand that. The Divine Blade moved instantly. The bizarre weapon Kurogane wielded was less akin to a sword and more 4 equally sized blades arranged in the shape of a cross, their bases connecting to a single point. Yeah, it's like a boomerang, kinda. Just a very deadly boomerang. That he could direct this large weighted shuriken, I guess is a better word for it, yeah. As though it were a simple child's toy, spoke volumes about how strong he was. Still, even if it was not infallible, for it was not one to be ideally used in close range combat. Kurogane appeared to have no other key weapons on hand, either, meaning if Rean could force him to fight where he could be at his most disadvantageous, he would likely come out of this the victor. This was what he had in mind choosing to act first. 2nd form, Gale. He closed the gap between them, drew his blade, and made a wide swing toward his opponent in the blink of an eye. Kurogane blocked the blow with ease. That, however, meant nothing in the larger scheme of things. Rean knew well that this man's capabilities. So long as the gap between them was closed, and it was, he considered the attack a success. But just as he thought he would be able to push onward and overpower his foe by mounting a new fierce assault, Kurogane had split his cross-shaped shuriken in half so it can separate. That's a terrifying thing. The ease at which he did made it clear this was intended by design. Oh boy. Yeah, so he could turn it into a shuriken into 2 dual blades. He could dual wield double sabers? It's like fighting Crow, but with 2 of them. There was no hiding his shock. In the West, double sabers were seen as relics from the Dark Ages that were difficult to utilize. Crow was the only person Rean knew who was competent with one, and only one. Yeah, can you imagine Crow wielding 2 of the same blades he always uses? The skill it would take to use 2 was almost difficult to fathom. His surprise created an opening that Kurogane was not going to let pass unexploited. Possessing twin 2-ended blades allowed the shinobi to perform considerably more strikes than Rean, giving him no chance to push back. Steel sparked as their weapons clashed. Also, it's probably really hard to see in the dead of night like this. Kurogane was dominant for some time, but he could do nothing to bolster his advantage. With strike and spark after strike and spark, the advantage was moving back to Rean. This was in part due to him being used to fighting this weapon that defied rationale from fighting Crow, but it was also because he had been given the time to find what he was looking for. The perfect range in which to attack. Double sabers were forged with a shorter reach than they appeared to have. Well, yeah, because you hold it from the middle. So, yeah, something inevitable. It says it right here. Something inevitable due to their handle being in the middle. It could have been because he also used them as a shuriken, but the length of Kurogane's sabers were even shorter than Crow's. Yeah, they're more like dual saber daggers compared to a spear like Crow's, meaning Rean would have to adjust with the longer length of his blade. He measured patiently, staying only just out of Kurogane's reach and evading the onslaught by a hair's breadth each time prior to countering. It was calculated quickly thanks to Kurogane's frequent rapid attacks, meaning all Rean had to do was wait for the right moment. This moment would come in the form of his opponent showing impatience for the stalled battle, driving him to take an unneeded step forward. Rean evaded the strike expertly, instantly returning it with an upward diagonal slash. The forceful swing of his tachi made contact with the handle of Kurogane's own swung weapon, knocking it clean out of his hand. Rean dashed forward to make use of this availed opportunity, but after only a flicker of bewilderment, Kurogane moved to deny him. He blocked Rean's attack with the double saber still in his possession and hurled a hidden kunai with his free hand, jumping backward a significant distance while doing so. Very good, Divine Blade of 8 Leaves. You may pale to the skills of our princess, but you without a doubt deserve your reputation. Princess? Rean's intonation went unanswered as Kurogane took a notably different stance than before. I shall demonstrate my respect for your skill with my finest technique. This put Rean staunchly on guard. Senses heightened, he focused every nerve in his body, fixing his eyes on whatever was to come of Kurogane, who was gone now. Nothing remained where Rean's opponent had just stood. He hadn't taken his eyes off him, never eased himself for a moment, yet Kurogane was nowhere to be seen. How? Had he moved that quickly? Was it because of some kind of spatial translocation? But there were no signs to indicate one. Was it that he never moved at all and was still there, sight unseen? No, that wasn't it either. The double saber Rean had repelled to the ground was also gone. I can still sense him, so he hasn't gone far. Rean suppressed the panic welling up within, honing his senses a second time. That was when another black cyclone swirled toward him from the shadows. He half expected something of this nature, so with little deviation he was able to deflect as he did the first time. The attack indicated that Kurogane had reassembled his shuriken after recovering its lost half so he could throw it again. It also indicated, together with the slight changes in his surroundings, where he was now positioned. Rean needed a little more time to know where he was for certain. But ahead of making a solid conclusion, the cyclone came at him again from a new angle. That was fast. Though he blocked this attack as well as the last, before he could fully correct his posture, the next cyclone approached. The gap between was getting shorter and shorter. There was another, time was shorter, and another, shorter. Soon, these assorted, smaller cyclones were seemingly growing into a blended grand storm of death, with Rean trapped in its center. This doesn't feel like I'm being attacked by a single person. Did he make phantom copies of himself? He had no idea where the next cyclone would form. And by the time he located it, the next one was ready. Even the unclouded eye wasn't going to be enough to deduce Kurogane's location. That's unfortunate. Yeah, he really has Rean on the defensive right now with whatever he's doing. He had been able to repel every blade that met with him so far, but that was growing increasingly difficult. I didn't want to use it, but I'm not sure I have a choice. Well aware that doing so would place him in danger, Rean took his mind off the battle. He gave up blocking and evading attacks, dedicating the bare minimum of his focus to not sustaining lethal blows and focusing his mind inward. He focused on the power he had long cultivated inside him. The power he had feared, loathed, and rejected. The power he now relied on, desired, and nearly surrendered himself to. The power he faced with his loved ones at his side, making it a true part of himself. With his mind clear as day, he unleashed his full strength. Enlightened spirit unification. He imbued his Tachi with a great power surging out of him. Crying out as he did so, and spinning his body forcibly to create a blade circling around him. The energy released by his Tachi repelled all forthcoming shuriken with ease, and with them, Kurogane's phantom copies lurking in the darkness faded to nothing. With that, there you are! He charged toward Kurogane. The man was thoroughly overwhelmed by Rean's sudden counterattack, throwing him completely off balance. There was nothing he could do to repel what would come next. It's time to settle this. Rean swung his Tachi downward while pouring all of his strength into a final single strike, but just as the two felt the battle was coming to an end. Zeroth form, duality. Zeroth again. Accompanied with a voice as beautiful as a bell, was a slash tearing through the sky, its color so black it threatened to eclipse the moon. It effortlessly stopped Rean's weapon from reaching his target. But that wasn't all. What? With a high-pitched metallic sound, Rean's beloved Tachi was sundered clearly in two. Princess? Kurogane was also taken aback by this new arrival. I heard what was happening from both our scouts. You could have invited me to join the fun instead of keeping it all to yourself. The words, as she chided Kurogane, indicated dissatisfaction, but the music of her tone betrayed her excitement. Rean made to see who this mysterious figure was. Yeah, there she is. The princess they were talking about. And the sight of her alone took his breath away. She was young, wearing a fortified suit that looked to be a marriage of classical and modern Eastern styles, with long silver hair that almost appeared to glow in the pale moonlight. Her age was likely close to Rean's, perhaps a little younger. Younger? Okay. With well-defined features that still held traces of adolescence, pairing strikingly in contrast to the empty void behind her eyes. There was the air of a young noblewoman who had been sheltered from impurities all her life, and the stench of a baleful warrior who had bathed in the blood of countless lives. How she was both and neither at once, Rean could not understand, but it was this very quality that made her all the more captivating and dangerous. In the woman's left hand was a large black engraved blade that threatened to freeze him for a daring glance at it. No doubt it was what halved Rean's Tachi moments ago. What did... Rean fumbled for the words as he clutched the useless handle tightly in his hand. The fair-haired woman only smiled as she looked down upon it. Your weapon was very fine, but it was never any match for my friend, I'm afraid. She spun the black blade in her hands around gently before holding it toward the night sky to seemingly display it with pride. It wasn't hard to see why she would boast about possessing such a weapon. He had seen many a blade of historical significance, but instinct told him that hers was better than any of those. The blunt side featured an intricate design of deeply gray that, while he could not discern its meaning there and then, he knew was nothing less than a work of art. There was an aura about it, one as cold as ice, that seemed to reject its worldly surroundings, making it capable of cutting through anything it so desired. Terrifying. It came in company with a beautiful hilt of deep red that contrasted its body without feeling out of place. The juxtaposition was, in a sense, much a reflection of its wielder, with their two opposing natures being distinctive yet also as one. Rean thought as he observed her blade was clearly something special, but that alone did not explain the strength behind her attack. He had never heard of the technique she used, but it was certainly connected to the 8 leaves in some way, and the skill she showed in executing it made her equal to a divine blade. He was so fixated on these thoughts as these thoughts rushed through his mind that he was only brought out by her sudden laughter. I didn't think I'd ever meet you here. I wonder if our old master is behind guiding us to the same place. Or if it's just a happy coincidence. Wait. The manner in which she spoke and her familiarity with Rean gave him a theory. That technique you just used was really something. Consider me intrigued. It's put you a league above more interesting than our senior practitioners. So, obviously she's an 8-leaf student. So he was right. Are you? But before he could hear what he already knew, she turned away, refusing to let him finish the question. He isn't here, so why don't you run back to your family? Go make the most of your vacation. Just don't let your skill with a blade slip. The world will need it again one day. Okay, so she's aware of something. She spoke with a certain satisfaction as she pointed down to the other half of his broken blade. Then she leapt high, seemingly disappearing to the other side of the moon. Rean could only stare, dumbfounded as she vanished. He couldn't even speak. Kuragane left with her. The Ikaruga, the Black God One-Blade School, and our senior practitioners. Rean had been unable to fulfill his objective, and not only that, he was left with countless new questions about the people he encountered in the mountains itself. He felt there was meaning behind being guided to the specific place, but how important it was or what it entailed he did not know. And yet, the person responsible for discerning that won't be me. Looking down at his broken Tachi, he was struck anew with how massive the world truly was. And he realized now that his master was confirmed to be elsewhere. The purpose of his visit to Longlai was nothing more than to enjoy a wonderful ordinary vacation with his family. This meeting here was but a peculiar coincidence. For now, at least. When I get back, I'll need to reforge my Tachi and myself. Something stirred in this region, all across Calvert, but there was nothing he could do about that as he was. All he could focus on was training and bettering himself so he could one day play a part against the next threat that loomed over the distant horizon. New resolve welling in his soul, he made his way through now still mountain trail back to where his loving family awaited. Another Hot Springs paradise. The end. So, that is that was a lot, obviously. So Rean and his family go to Longlie over in Calvard for a little vacation. And then while he's there, he's obviously looking for Master Yunkafai. But instead, what he comes up against is a group of shinobi known as the Ikaruga, and seemingly one of his fellow 8 Leaves 1 Blade student practitioners. Obviously, up to this point, the direct students we know of are just Cassius, Arios, and Rean, and now we have this this fourth woman. But obviously, it's a character we're gonna get to meet in Calvard and learn more about. But obviously, in Rean's mind, all he can do in the meantime, because Calvard is not his place to get involved with stuff directly, at least for right now, he's just gonna go back, reforge his sword, make himself stronger, so whenever stuff does hit the fan and he needs to help out, he will be able to do so. So, that's gonna be it. So next time, we'll go ahead and do that second story, and we'll see what else awaits us moving forward. So, that's gonna be it, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe more if you're new to the channel. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day, everyone.